Hey guys, this is section 10.2. I'm recording late at night. Everyone has gone to bed, so I have to be a little more quiet. I am joined tonight by Mr. Tickle Me Amo, who is here to take you through the fall of the Concert of Europe. Yes. And yes. So, let me go in the other room here. I can't be quiet. All I do is reset. Okay, concert again. So, that's like Unit 9, right? I'm going to turn this. No, okay. No. Turn off. Okay. Unit 9, right? I mean, that's like one of the big parts of the age of conservative order is that European countries are working together. The Big Five are working together to, I don't know if that's turned off or not, we'll find out. They're working together to put down all of the revolutionary threats throughout Europe. And a good way to kind of remember is we're dealing here with the years 1815 to 1848, when the Concert of Europe is really in its heyday. I don't think I turned it off. Try it out. Okay. After 1848, there's going to be kind of a change because I think countries start to see the way that they're treating these revolutions as maybe unsustainable, that you can only play whack-a-mole so many times. Of course, when Metternich is kind of chased away from his role in Austria in 1848, that also marks a change. So we're going to see the alliances in the Congress system that was developed after Vienna in 1815. That's going to start to go by the wayside. And the way that it was designed also is not only to put revolutionary activity down, but also to help maintain the balance of power in Europe, is that it was designed in a way that these five countries would work together and, again, not actively try to, seek to gain power over the other one, right? Because the emphasis is you're working together to stop the internal threats, and you're not trying to butt heads to try to grow in power and prestige against the other. But after 1848, that system is going to die. And like I said, it's probably because countries see that system as unsustainable. It limits national growth. And it's probably not successful because these revolutions keep happening, even though the majority of them do fail. Go back to section 9.5, the revolutions of 1848 and how those fail. Of course, in 1830, a lot of them fail. But you just get tired of doing the same thing over and over again. So countries, governments are going to start to change the way they look at this revolutionary activity. So there's several events that kind of make this change. There's several events that really facilitate and make this change happen, this going away from the Concert of Europe. And of course, the unifications of Italy and Germany were two things that shift the balance of power, but you also have a few other events, and one of them is called the Crimean War, which takes place in the Crimean Peninsula, which if you look on a map at Ukraine, there's a little bit of a chunk of land right here, draw a circle, look at that, that extends down from the Ukraine, of course, has been the news the last several years because of Russia's attempts to retake the Crimean Peninsula, but this is the original Crimean War, 1853 to 56. Good pun there, you can figure it out. So, what are the causes of this conflict? Well, it really has nothing to do with European powers originally. Orthodox Christians living in the Ottoman Empire were being persecuted, basically. The Ottoman Empire really is starting to restrict its religious freedom technique that they kind of had early on, and there's a lot of Christians that are being persecuted. So the thought is that these Western nations might want to go in to protect the Christians in the empire. However, probably one of the major causes for the war is that Russia is interested in expanding into the Middle East, and the question is, well, why would Russia want to go down there, right? Russia's got enough land. But again, think about what Russia wanted back in the Peter the Great days. Warm water port. You got a lot of warm water down in the Middle East. Crimean Peninsula is the Black Sea. Then you have access maybe to the Mediterranean. So Russia is trying to get down into that southern part of its territory and into the Middle East. And the Ottoman Empire is sitting there. So the Ottoman Empire will declare war against Russia due to Russia's aggressions. Okay, so the Ottoman Empire declares war against Russia. It's something we do not see in the age of the conservative order in between 1815 and 1848 is European countries declaring war on one another. That is something we don't see at all. Now, when I say the music dies, I mean the concert is going away because Britain and France are going to join this war to support the Ottoman Empire and fight against the Russians. And by doing so, this effectively ends the concert of Europe. The effort of countries working together to combat revolutionary activity dies with the Crimean War because, again, we've got Britain and France helping the Ottoman Empire, the struggling Ottoman Empire, face off against the Russians. Now, it's a 3-year war, and the new Tsar by the year 1856, his name's Alexander II, is going to end the war. And one of the reasons why, we're going to really hit this in 10.3, but one of the reasons why Russia struggles is that they do not have the system of industrialization to A, create a productive base of goods to help them during the war, and B, have a transportation system to move soldiers and goods during the war as well. Of course, Russia's such a big place, you got to move people around, but they do not have the logistical strength through the Industrial Revolution to have any sort of success because the Industrial Revolution has not come to Russia yet. So the Ottoman Empire, being helped by industrial powers, Britain and France, are able to defeat, by default, basically, the Russians by the end of the war. So that's kind of the story. And the Crimean War has other historical importance. It is the first war that was photographed with the use of new technology called the camera, so people actually got to see what does war look like, and that's going to change the perception of war later. It also was a war where a young woman named Florence Nightingale led a group of nurses to actively treat the wounded men on the battlefield. So again, Crimean War is significant not only for the purposes of our study, but also some trivial things that make it an interesting battle. And in class, we're going to look at a pretty famous poem which is attributed to the Crimean War. Now, Austria, post-1848. So we saw in Austria in 1848 a failed revolution led by the Magyars. Where are they? Hungary. Okay, it's the Magyar ethnicity by Louis Kossuth, who led that revolt. And it failed in 1848, and Austria continues to be an empire. But the one thing that we have to know about Austria, and we established this in the fall, is that this Austrian Habsburg Empire, it's the Habsburgs still in control, this Austrian Empire is very diverse. And you can see it here. I mean, it's all the colors of the rainbow. And the problem is if you want to control that, you're going to have to be able to manage different cultures and different customs and different languages, and that's very difficult. And then after the 1866 Austro-Prussian War, which is the war that Bismarck picked to fight with Austria to prove Prussian supremacy in the German states, Austria struggles. Okay, this is 18 years after 1848, but it's clear that the current state of the Austrian Empire is not going to last. So small ethnic groups in the empire, after being defeated in this war, start pushing for independence again. And because of that, the Austrian Empire is basically like, you know what, we're going to have to relent because us trying to hold on to everybody in our current state is not working. So they give the Hungarians, kind of the more powerful ethnic group inside the empire, they give the Hungarians their own miniature government, right? They give them their ability to kind of rule themselves. However, they're still going to be a part of the Austrian Empire. So they have more, I guess, powers inside their own country or their own little section of the empire. However, they're still going to support the imperial government, who's the emperor in Vienna, and they're also going to help support the Austrian army. But because of this kind of change in relationship where they get more local power but still a part of the big picture, Austria becomes known as Austria-Hungary from this point on. And this is called the Ausgleich this move to combine the two together. And that's in the year 1867. And again, the concept behind it is it was an attempt to stabilize the state by reconfiguring national unity. That's the phrase that you may see as the reconfigurement of national unity in order to stabilize the state and to make sure the Austrian Empire didn't fall apart. Because again, the problem is you got all these different ethnic groups that you got to kind of keep happy to be in the empire, and you better start maybe providing some, freedoms and some, a little bit of success, especially if your, war efforts aren't going as well. So we'll come back definitely to the Austrian Empire down the road when things get a little explosive before World War I. So the last part of today is we're going to look at the Ottoman Empire. And the question is, what do we do with the Ottoman Empire? Because, as it was shown in the Crimean War, they're not strong enough to hold their own, right? Britain and France had to come in and help them, perhaps not of their own, being like, oh, Ottoman Empire, we love you, but it might have been a play to say, what, Ottoman Empire, maybe you should grant us some things, maybe some territory, because we helped you in this war. And also, I should note, going back to the Crimean War, and you may want to go back up in your notes to this, the motivation for Britain and France to help was definitely to keep the Russians out of the Middle East, because they know that would increase the Russians' power. So again, concert of Europe is definitely dead. Nobody trusts anyone anymore. So let's take a look here at the Ottoman Empire. And as time goes on, we're in the year 1878 here, the Ottoman Empire is going backward, right? It is receding back into the Middle East. Of course, here's Greece, which we mentioned the other day in class, has earned its independence from the Ottoman Empire. The question is, if the Ottoman Empire ever breaks apart, who's going to get all of this land in green? Like, who's going to come in and have control in that area? Because the Ottoman Empire is known as the sick man of Europe at this time. They're sick, right? I'm sick. They need medicine. That medicine might be a big kick in the face from another European country. So again, what do we do here? And it's not just the Ottoman Empire, but it's this whole region. And this whole region is called the Balkans. Okay, maybe define that. Southeastern Europe is known as the Balkans. And it's an area, because of the Ottoman Empire going out, the Austrian Empire is right there, all these different ethnic groups, it is an explosive place. So in the year 1878, Russia and the Ottoman Empire get into another scuffle. The result of this, we'll talk about here in a second. So let's talk briefly about the contenders to take the land that the Ottoman Empire might leave behind. Well, we got Austria-Hungary, right? Geographically, that makes sense. They're moving southeast as it is. Perhaps they just, slide to the DMs right there into the Balkans. The Russians, okay? And it's not just the Middle East and the warm water ports, but Russia and many Russians believed in this dream called Pan-Slavism. Pan-Slavism is the idea that one day all of the Slavic people in Europe would be under one flag. And we're talking about a huge area in Eastern and Central Europe. We're talking where Slovakia is today. We're talking Serbia. We're talking so many areas in Southeast Europe, and we're talking Russia. And the thought is, just as Prussia united the German people, that perhaps Russia could unite the Slavic people. So the dream is to extend into that area, expand into that area, and perhaps have that dream become alive. And because of that dream, it motivates the Russians to defeat the Ottoman Empire in this war in 1878, or at least this scuffle, right? Not an all-out war, as the Ottoman Empire continues to lose territory, and Russia defeats them there. But Britain and France are also involved, and as probably the two most powerful economic countries at this point, they're certainly going to have an eye on what's going down in the Middle East. And there's another factor at play we'll talk about before that motivates Britain and France to get involved. So the question is, who is going to settle this dispute? Who's going to come in and say, I'm going to be the one make the decisions and help facilitate the conversation so that we have decisions? Well, it's none other than our boy, Otto von Bismarck. The guy, right? I mean, he's everywhere. So Otto von Bismarck's going to come in and say, all right, Russia, Ottoman Empire, come to Berlin. We'll talk about your problems. Britain and France, y'all come too. Austrian Empire, we'll decide who's going to get this territory here. The small group, not all the Ottoman Empire, they're not fully conquered, but maybe just this little bit of land that they're losing. So Bismarck starts a peace conference, and here's the results of it. Well, it reaffirms the idea that the Ottoman Empire is basically dead. They're still existing. Okay, note, this Congress of Berlin does not eliminate the Ottoman Empire, but it does prove that it's a ticking time bomb, right? Eventually, one day, not only are they're going to lose all their land, but they're going to cease to exist, and then you're going to have different countries pop up because of it. Russia actually gets very little land in this deal. The Austrians actually gain. There's some independent countries that are declared. Serbia, for instance, is declared an independent country. The Russians get very little in this fight that they won, and the Russians are like, you know what? Screw you, Germany. We don't like you, right? You basically came in here, Bismarck, and you took our party away, and that's going to create a little bit of tension and hostility. That's not really going to go away anytime soon. So that's something to note as we go forward. So again, the thought here that I want us to really catch is that thanks to things like the Franco-Prussian War, thanks to the Crimean War, thanks to the Congress of Berlin and the sick man of Europe, and the Austrian Empire with Hungary, is that the time of cooperation is over and tensions are beginning to mount between these big five European powers. And what we see in 1870 is going to just continue to grow until we get to the year 1914 and the bomb's going to go off. And the bomb is World War I. But we have so much more to go and so much more to do in this Unit 10. 10.3 is a mega unit or mega section, a lot going on there. Also get to 10.4, which is extremely important in understanding not only Europe's place in the world in the late 1800s, but also their place in the world today and what impact and legacy is left. So I'm going to discard that, and then I'm going to just stop this. Okay, good night. Sayonara. Peace.